Chapter 1. The King Wakes Up. Altara Vale had closed his eyes as a 65-year-old billionaire and opened them to the smell of cereal and crayons. The ceiling above him was wrong, too low, too plain, and definitely not marble. His silk sheets were gone, replaced by bright blue ones covered in cartoon superheroes. His king-sized bed had become a narrow twin with chipped wooden posts. For a long moment, he lay still, trying to piece together what in the world had gone wrong. When he finally sat up, the world tilted. His arms were short, his hands small, soft, unscarred. The mirror across the room showed a face he hadn't seen in over half a century. Wide eyes, messy brown hair, a smudge of toothpaste on his cheek. "This is impossible," he whispered, but the voice that came out was high and squeaky. He stumbled to the window. Suburbia stretched out before him, the same rows of houses he'd long ago escaped. His heart pounded. Somehow, Altara Vale, the king of deals, the man who once controlled half the city's skyline, had become his 9-year-old self again. "Altara!" a woman's voice called from downstairs. "You'll miss the bus!" His mother, alive again. He froze, emotion clashing with disbelief. She'd died decades ago. Yet here she was, humming as she clattered dishes in the kitchen. He wanted to run to her, but his mind spun. What was happening? A dream? A punishment? Minutes later, still dazed, he found himself standing at the corner where the yellow school bus screeched to a stop. Children poured in. Laughter, shouts, backpacks swinging. A chaos he hadn't known in 60 years. He took one step up, and that's when it happened. A hand shoved his shoulder. Another yanked his backpack. Before he could react, he was face first in a muddy puddle, the sound of laughter echoing above him. "Still clumsy, Vale," a red-haired boy jeered. The same bully, Derek Mason. The same smirk. Altara blinked through the mud and water, watching the bus doors close. For a moment, old humiliation surged, but then just as quickly it was gone, replaced by a cool, dangerous calm. He stood, wiped his face, and smiled. Not this time. By midday, Altara was sitting in a classroom that smelled faintly of glue and pencil shavings, pretending to pay attention. In truth, he was studying the battlefield. Every market had its structure, every empire its hierarchy. This place was no different. There were the dominant cliques, the bullies like Derek who ruled through fear, the middle management, kids who followed whoever seemed strongest, and the outcasts, smart, quiet, underestimated. Assets, he thought. During recess, he tested the waters. He noticed a boy crying beside the basketball court, his lunch stolen probably by Derek's gang. Altara knelt down, offered the boy half his own sandwich, and asked, "How much is peace of mind worth to you?" The boy blinked. "Whoa, what?" Altara smiled. "I'll make sure they don't bother you again. You just bring me your extra pudding cups from lunch. Deal?" Within 2 days, Altara had built the beginnings of his new empire. By the end of the week, he controlled the candy trade. Kids came to him for advice, protection, or simply to be left alone. He never raised his voice. He didn't need to. Power came quietly, like interest on a well-timed investment. The teachers praised him for his maturity. The bullies began to hesitate before crossing him. Even Derek Mason, king of the playground, found himself outmaneuvered. His followers peeled away one by one, tempted by Altara's generosity and cleverness. And yet, as Altara stood one afternoon at the edge of the blacktop, watching the lines of kids moving at his unseen command, something cold stirred in his chest. He'd done it again. Built another system, another hierarchy, another empire. The faces were smaller, but the patterns were the same: control, fear, dependency. When a small girl offered him a chocolate bar as payment, he almost refused. But old habits die hard. He took it with a smile, then caught sight of his reflection in a classroom window, a boy's face, wearing a man's calculating eyes. For the first time, he wondered if this second childhood was less a gift and more a test. That night, lying beneath his superhero sheets, Altara stared at the ceiling. He could still hear his mother humming in the kitchen, could smell the warmth of home. He thought of all the things he'd lost: friends, laughter, family, in pursuit of power. Maybe, this time, he could change the ending. Or maybe, as always, he'd end up owning everything and losing himself again. Either way, tomorrow was Monday, and in this new world, the schoolyard was his boardroom, and the game had just begun. Chapter 2: The Playground Market. By the second week, Altara Vale had turned the schoolyard into a functioning economy. It started with candy. Every kid had it, few managed it wisely. Some traded impulsively, one chocolate bar for a handful of gum, while others hoarded until their stash melted in their desk. Altara saw inefficiency, waste, and above all, opportunity. He introduced structure. First, he appointed collectors, reliable kids, mostly those who used to sit alone. They gathered supplies, snacks, stickers, erasers, anything of value. Next, he created a simple ledger, hidden in a math notebook, to track assets and debts. Soon, every transaction went through him. He even invented a playground currency, star points, drawn on notebook paper and backed by real candy. By Friday, the entire schoolyard buzzed with deals. 2 star points for your gummy worms. Make it 3, and I'll throw in a rare pencil topper. From his bench by the basketball court, Altara watched with satisfaction. Order from chaos, the essence of enterprise. But even empires face resistance. It came in the form of Ivy. She was quiet, sharp-eyed, and perpetually reading. The kind of student who knew every teacher's schedule, every secret rule. She approached him at lunch one day, setting her tray down across from his. "I know what you're doing," she said simply. Altara smiled politely. "Eating?" She didn't return the smile. "No, you're running a marketplace, and you're using younger kids as brokers. Mrs. Lang is starting to notice. You'll get detention soon. Or worse." Altara studied her, intrigued. Most kids saw him as either a savior or a schemer. None saw through him. "And what's it to you?" he asked. Ivy leaned forward. "You're good at business. I'm good at systems. I think we could help each other, if you don't get caught first." For a moment, he saw a spark. Intelligence, ambition, the same hunger he'd once admired in boardroom prodigies. He extended a hand. "Then let's make a deal." Over the next few days, they worked together. Ivy mapped out teacher patrol routes and recess rotations. Altara optimized trade efficiency. They introduced discrete trading zones and even set up a hidden supply locker behind the gym. The empire grew, smoother, quieter, and more profitable. For the first time, Altara felt something almost foreign: enjoyment. Ivy challenged him, questioned him, even teased him. When she caught him adjusting the star point exchange rate to his advantage, she scolded him. "That's manipulation," she said. "That's economics," he countered. But beneath the banter, a seed of doubt began to form. Ivy didn't see power the way he did. For her, the system wasn't about control. It was about fairness, balance, and efficiency. It reminded him of the kind of leader he'd never been. Then came the incident. Derek Mason, his old bully turned reluctant subordinate, had been skimming from the trades, taking candy without logging it. When Altara confronted him behind the storage shed, the boy's smirk returned. "You think you run this place, Vale? You're just a freak with a notebook." Altara's tone was calm. "You're in breach of contract, Derek." "That means consequences," Derek shoved him. "What are you gonna do? Tell the teacher?" Altara wiped the dirt from his sleeve, eyes cold. "No, I'll make you irrelevant." By Monday, Derek's social power was gone. Altara spread rumors with surgical precision, quietly replaced Derek's friends with new managers, and froze him out of every trade. The former bully found himself invisible, a nobody. But when Ivy heard about it, she didn't congratulate him. "You didn't fix the problem," she said. "You destroyed him." Altara frowned. "He made his choice. Actions have consequences." She looked at him sadly. That's exactly what an adult would say. The words struck deeper than he expected. That night, Altara couldn't sleep. He lay in the dark, thinking about Derek's empty stare in the hallway, about Ivy's disappointment, about the empire he was quietly rebuilding one trade at a time. Was this what his second chance was for? To repeat his old mistakes, only with smaller people and cheaper stakes? When dawn came, he made a quiet decision. Tomorrow, he'd start something new, something better. Maybe for once he'd learn how to build, not conquer.
Chapter 3. The Reform the Monday Sun Rose. Over the schoolyard like any other laughter. Sneakers squeaking on pavement, the clang of the bell. But to Altara Vale, it wasn't just another day. It was the start of something new. He arrived early, sitting on his usual bench, his old notebook balanced on his knees. Inside were the ledgers, the trades, the debts the empire he had built from the ground up. And now, he was going to tear it down. When the first bell rang, his collectors arrived for their morning reports. One by one, they handed over paper slips, candies, and star points. Altara listened silently, then said, "We're ending the system." The group blinked. "What do you mean, ending it? No more trades? Whole keep order?" Altara took a deep breath. "Well, still trade, but fairly. No more middlemen. No more debt. Everyone deals directly." And the star points? Gone. A stunned silence followed. Then came the protests. "That's crazy! You're killing the market! You said would be safe if we worked for you." Altara looked at their faces. Kids had given confidence, purpose, belonging. Now they looked betrayed. He almost faltered. But Ivy's words echoed in his mind. "You didn't fix the problem. You destroyed him." He closed the notebook and stood. "Maybe it's time I stopped being the boss." He walked away, leaving them arguing in the dust. By lunch, the playground was chaos again. Without his control, fights broke out over candy trades. The bullies freed from Altara's invisible rules returned to old habits. Derek Mason was back on the swings, smirking as he shoved a smaller boy aside of E. Found Altara watching from the edge of the field, arms crossed. "You look miserable for someone who just gave up power." She said, "I didn't expect reform to look this noisy." She smirked. "Change always is." Then after a pause, "You could help them without controlling them, you know." He glanced at her. "You make it sound easy. It's not," she said. "But you've got the brains for it. Maybe this time use them to teach instead of rule." Altara chuckled softly. "You'd make a fine CEO, not interested," she said, smiling. "I'd rather make sure people like you don't mess things up again." That afternoon, Altara took her advice. Instead of directing trades, he started teaching. He showed kids how to negotiate fairly, how to share profits, how to organize without exploitation. Slowly, the chaos began to shift. The candy economy returned smaller, fairer, and somehow happier. Even Derek, resentful but curious, began to join in. For the first time, Altara didn't feel like a ruler. He felt like a mentor, and as the final bell rang, he looked around the bustling schoolyard, noisy, imperfect, alive, and realized he didn't need to own it to make it better. Maybe this was what growing up really meant. That night, as he lay under his superhero sheets, Altara thought of his past life, the towers, the meetings, the endless hunger for more. He smiled faintly. For the first time in decades, he didn't want more. He just wanted to be, and somewhere deep inside, the King of Deals finally learned how to let go. Chapter 4: The Price of Power. Part when the quiet cracks. The morning light spilled through the blinds like gold dust. Warm and familiar, yet slightly too bright, as if the world itself was trying to remind Altara Vale that he didn't belong to it anymore. He sat at his small wooden desk, the one covered with math worksheets and pencil marks. In front of him lay his notebook, the same one that once held ledgers and corporate plans, now filled with candy inventories and trade charts. Lines, arrows, and numbers sprawled across the page in organized chaos. Beneath it all, his handwriting neat, deliberate, like the signature of a man who had once ruled empires. But this was no empire. Not really, it was a playground. A patch of asphalt ruled by sugar and noise. And yet, as he studied his notes, he felt that old spark again, the rhythm of profit, the dance of control. Every trade, every exchange, every child who came to him with desperate eyes and sticky fingers was another piece in the grand puzzle he had always loved solving. It was intoxicating, and it terrified him. From downstairs came the familiar sound of his mother humming the same melody that used to drift through his childhood mornings decades ago. That sound alone should have grounded him, pulled him back to innocence. But instead, it twisted around his heart like a reminder of what time had stolen. He closed the notebook. At school, things had changed. The playground buzzed like a miniature city. Candy changed hands faster than rumors. Stickers, erasers, and even Pokemon cards had found their value within Altara's system. The star points once scribbled on notebook paper had become a currency everyone respected. Even the teachers noticed the difference. "You're such an organized young man, Altara," one had said with a smile. "Maybe you'll be a banker one day," he'd smiled politely, biting back the irony. Derek Mason, the old bully, now worked for him. Not directly, Derek was too proud for that, but indirectly, through smaller trades and influence. He was a regional manager, as Altara half-joked to himself. The irony of turning his tormentor into a subordinate was not lost on him. But power, he had learned long ago, was never the problem. It was the feeling of power that consumed the soul. Ivy had begun to see that. Her eyes, once filled with admiration and amusement at his cleverness, now carried something colder concern. "Altara," she said one afternoon as they sat under the oak tree near the basketball court. "You've built something impressive. But doesn't it ever feel wrong?" He looked up from his notebook. "Wrong? What do you mean?" She hesitated, searching for words. "It's just everyone listens to you. They follow your rules. They trade because you say it's fair. But who decides what's fair, you?" Altara smiled faintly, the same way he used to smile at nervous shareholders. "Someone has to keep order. That's what everyone who's ever had power says," she murmured. The wind stirred between them. A page in his notebook fluttered numbers and names dancing in the sunlight like ghosts of a system too large for a child's world. He wanted to argue, to explain that control was stability, that structure was safety. But the words caught in his throat. Ivy's gaze calm. Questioning pierced through layers of his practiced logic. "Maybe," she said softly, "you're just afraid of what happens when you're not in control." He looked away, toward the playground, his empire. The laughter, the deals, the rules, the very same things that once filled boardrooms and headlines in another life. The repetition chilled him. Maybe she was right. That evening, Altara lay awake beneath his superhero sheets. The room glowed faintly blue from the nightlight shaped like a rocket ship. His notebook sat on the nightstand beside him, closed for once. His mind drifted back decades into the life he'd lost. Boardrooms filled with polished men and hollow smiles. Contracts inked with promises and betrayals. His own reflection in mirrored windows, older, colder, emptier. The truth pressed against his chest like a weight. He hadn't built empires to protect others. He'd built them to protect himself from powerlessness, from fear, from pain. Now here he was in a smaller body repeating the same pattern. And for the first time since waking in this strange second life, he felt something close to shame. He turned over and stared at the ceiling, whispering into the dark, "Maybe this time I can end it differently." The moonlight touched his face like a quiet promise. The next few days passed in uneasy rhythm. Altara noticed more cracks in his system, small things at first. A trade dispute between two collectors. A missing ledger page. Kids hoarding candy instead of circulating it. Then rumors Derek Mason was keeping a private stash and charging interest to younger students who borrowed sweets. It was absurdly familiar, a microcosm of every market he'd ever built, complete with corruption and greed. But this time, he couldn't blame anyone but himself. When he confronted Derek, the boy just smirked. "Don't act like you're any better, Vale. You're the one who taught us how to play the game." The words stung more than they should have, because Derek was right. Altara wasn't teaching fairness, he was teaching dominance. That afternoon, Ivy found him sitting alone at the far edge of the field, staring at the distant horizon where the clouds burned gold. "You look tired," she said gently, sitting beside him. "I am," he admitted. "For the first time in I don't even know how long. Maybe you're tired of playing the same game." He glanced at her. "And if it's the only game I know how to play?" She smiled, sad but warm. "Then maybe it's time to learn a new one." Altara didn't reply. His hands fidgeted with the corner of his notebook, thumb tracing the worn paper where numbers and debts lived like old ghosts. The wind carried laughter from the playground, laughter that once filled him with satisfaction. Now it only made him feel small. Chapter 4, The Price of Power. Part 2, Collapse and Confrontation. The next week began with rain. Soft silver rain that whispered against the school windows, turning the courtyard into a dull mirror. For most of the kids, it was just another wet day, a chance to trade stickers in the hallway or sneak candy under desks. But for Altara Vale, it was the sound of an empire drowning. He sat in the corner of the classroom, notebook open on his lap, watching droplets trace crooked lines down the glass. Each drop, each trickle, felt like time running out. His once immaculate charts had grown chaotic, crossed-out numbers, debts unpaid, red marks bleeding into the margins. Something was unraveling. And this time, he couldn't fix it with charm or logic. It began with a small rebellion. Liam Carter, a freckled boy from Class 4B, stood on top of the lunch table one afternoon and shouted, "Why should Altara decide what candy's worth? He's not the boss of us." Laughter erupted, sharp and uneasy. The crowd gathered like wolves scenting weakness. Derek Mason stood nearby, arms crossed, grinning. He didn't need to lead the charge, he just had to stand there and let it happen. Altara froze. The notebook in his hands felt suddenly heavy, like a crown made of lead. He had been through boardroom coups, corporate smear campaigns, and betrayal in far grander halls than this, yet somehow this was worse. Because this time, the empire collapsing around him wasn't built from glass towers and profit margins, it was built from children's trust. "I don't decide," he tried to say, voice steady but thin. "The system does. Fair trade keeps order fair for who?" Liam shot back. "You make the rules, you get the best trades, and everyone else gets scraps." Murmurs spread, heads nodded. Ivy stood near the back, silent, her expression unreadable. Altara felt the familiar heat of panic rise in his chest, the desperate need to explain. to justify. But as he looked at the faces of his classmates, he realized they weren't listening. They didn't want fairness, they wanted freedom. The same hunger had once crushed beneath contracts and control. He closed the notebook slowly. "You're right," he said quietly. "Maybe it's time the system ends." The room went still. For the first time since he'd started this strange second life, Altara Vale relinquished control willingly. But endings are never clean. By the next day, chaos reigned. Kids fought over candy trades, old debts turned into playground brawls. Without Altara's rules, everything fractured into noise and greed. The teachers didn't notice, they only saw the usual childish disorder. But to Altara, it was a market crash. A moral recession. He walked through it all like a ghost, silent, detached, watching the small world burn. And as much as he wanted to stop it, some deeper part of him whispered, "You chose this. You wanted freedom. Now live with it." That whisper sounded eerily like Ivy's voice. He found her after class, beneath the old oak tree where they used to talk. She was sketching something in her notebook. Not numbers, but shapes, branches, leaves, sky. "You were right," he said. She looked up. "About what?" "Everything." He sat beside her, the damp grass soaking into his shoes. "I tried to build something better. A fair system. But I ended up making another machine that eats people." Ivy studied him for a moment. "You didn't make a bad thing, Altara. You just didn't know how to let go of control." He sighed. "In my last life, I thought control was survival. I built walls out of contracts and called them safety. But here," he gestured toward the schoolyard, "even here, I just repeated the same mistake." "Maybe that's how people learn," she said softly. "By breaking what they build over and over until they finally understand what should be left standing." Her words hung between them, fragile, luminous. For the first time, Altara didn't feel the need to respond. He simply listened to the wind, to the laughter of children rediscovering how to play without permission. It was chaos, yes, but it was real. The following days passed like a fever breaking. The old order vanished, replaced by something simpler. Kids began to trade directly, not by rules or ledgers, but by choice. Favors replaced contracts. Friendship replaced profit. It hurt to watch, but it also healed something in him. He'd spent lifetimes trying to perfect systems that kept people from hurting each other. But perhaps that was never the point. Perhaps the point was to live messy, uncertain, and beautifully human. Still, not everyone was ready to forgive. Derek Mason cornered him behind the gym after school one day, flanked by two friends. "So that's it?" Derek sneered. "You tear down your little empire and just walk away?" Altara didn't flinch. It wasn't mine to keep. Derek shoved him against the wall. "You made fools out of us. We followed you. You think you can just stop playing?" Altara met his glare calmly. "That's the thing about games, Derek. You only win when you stop needing to." Few words didn't make sense to Derek, not yet. But they would someday. He shoved Altara one last time and walked off, muttering under his breath. His footsteps faded into the rain. Altara stayed where he was, leaning against the wall, letting the drizzle soak through his uniform. And for the first time, he didn't feel defeated. He felt free. Later that evening, he wrote a single line in his notebook. Not a calculation, not a plan. Just a sentence. "Power means nothing if it costs your peace." He closed the book and set it aside. It no longer felt like a ledger. It felt like a diary. Outside, the rain eased, leaving behind the soft hum of the world, breathing again. And somewhere between exhaustion and quiet joy, Altara Vale began to understand that redemption doesn't come from being forgiven, it comes from finally forgiving yourself. Chapter 4, The Price of Power Part 3. The dismantling, the rain stopped by morning. The clouds peeled back like old wallpaper, revealing a thin line of sunlight that turned the puddles gold. Altara Vale arrived early at school again, just as he always did, but this time, there was no notebook in his hands. He stood at the edge of the playground and watched. The market he had built and unbuilt was still alive, in a way. Small trades flickered across the yard like sparks a chocolate bar for a sticker, a rare eraser swapped for 2 gummy worms. The same game, reborn without a king. For the first time, he felt no urge to interfere. He simply watched, breathing in the sound of laughter, the chaos, the imperfect rhythm of freedom. It was strange, the same sound that once signified disorder now felt like music. Thinking about starting another empire? Ivy's voice came from behind him. He turned, smiling faintly. No, I think I'm done with empires. She walked beside him, hands tucked into her jacket pockets. Good. One more, and I'd have to start a revolution. He chuckled. You'd make a good revolutionary. It'd make a better teacher, she said. And so would you. Altara tilted his head. Teacher? Yeah. You know, someone who helps people get smarter instead of richer. He laughed softly. The kind of laugh that comes from recognition, not humor. You make it sound so easy. It's not, she said, looking out toward the swings. But I think you've already started. He followed her gaze. Near the basketball court, 2 younger kids were arguing over a candy trade. One of them, a boy with glasses, looked ready to cry. Altara hesitated, then walked over. He crouched beside them. What's going on? He took my lollipop, the boy said. Nuh-uh, I traded for it. I gave him a sticker. Altara held out his hands. Show me. The boy produced a wrinkled sticker. Half torn, the other held a lollipop, sticky and slightly bitten. It was absurd. Small and completely unimportant, and yet it felt like a mirror of every negotiation. Every boardroom conflict he'd ever lived. He smiled. Okay. How about this? You both made a deal. But you didn't talk about what happens if something changes. That's not cheating, that's miscommunication. The 2 blinked, uncertain. So, he continued, you can fight about it, or you can make a new deal. That works for both of you. They looked at each other, grumbling, then shrugged. Half? Fine. The lollipop split, the tears dried, and the world kept turning. Ivy, watching from a distance, grinned. See? Teaching. Altara sighed, but there was warmth in his eyes, maybe. By the end of the week, something new had taken root. Altara started gathering kids during recess, not for trades, but for lessons. They called it candy class. He showed them how to set fair prices, how to trade without cheating, how to cooperate instead of compete. They drew charts in chalk on the pavement, played mock market games, and even held little debates on ethics. Of fairness, the teachers thought it was cute. The kids thought it was fun, but to Altara, it felt sacred, a chance to build something. That didn't need him to be in charge. The old empire had been made of fear and rules. This one was made of understanding, and slowly, it began to spread. Even Derek Mason started showing up. At first, he lingered at the edge, arms crossed, pretending not to care. But when Altara noticed him and nodded in quiet invitation, Derek stepped closer. During one lesson, Ivy handed Derek a handful of fake star points. He raised an eyebrow. Didn't we burn this system? Altara smiled. We did. Now we're studying it so no one repeats it. For a long moment, Derek said nothing. Then he looked down at the paper coins in his hand and muttered, guess even bad systems can teach something. Exactly. Altara said. It wasn't an apology. Not exactly, but it was enough. The weeks passed. playground economy returned, smaller and gentler. Children traded not to win, but to share. Arguments still happened. Of course they always would, but now someone would inevitably say, "Talk it out like in candy class." It became a kind of quiet philosophy, a living memory of the boy who once ruled and learned to serve instead. One afternoon, as the sun set behind the schoolyard fence, Ivy sat beside Altara on their old bench. "You've changed things," she said softly. He shook his head. "They changed themselves. I just stopped getting in the way," she smiled. "That's the hardest kind of change." He didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted over the playground, the same cracked pavement, the same laughter, the same chaos, but now it felt alive. Not his creation, not his responsibility, just itself. For the first time, that was enough. That night, he lay beneath his superhero-patterned blanket, staring at the faint shadows on the ceiling. He thought of his past life, the skyscrapers, the late nights, the empty victories, and then of this one chalk dust on his hands, the laughter of children, the feeling of something fragile, and good growing without his control. He reached for his old notebook on the bedside table. Most of the pages were filled with numbers and charts, remnants of a mind that once measured everything in value. Now, he turned to a blank page and wrote a single line. "Power is not what you hold. It's what you choose to release." He smiled a quiet, tired smile and closed his eyes. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, whispering like the memory of something forgiven. And in that stillness, the boy who once ruled kingdoms of greed finally learned what it meant to let go. Chapter 5. The new blueprint autumn arrived. Quietly, the leaves by the playground turned amber, drifting across the cracked pavement like little embers. The morning air held the crisp scent of chalk dust and cold wind. Each day began the same. The bell rang, laughter scattered like birds, and the small world of childhood set into motion. But something was different now. Altara Vale sat beneath his usual tree, his knees drawn up, a small smile on his face. The playground was bustling as ever, but this time, it didn't revolve around him. Kids still traded stickers for snacks, pencils for rare cards, but they did it with their own rules, fairer rules. A few even drew charts in the dirt, mimicking the lessons from candy class. He had become unnecessary, and somehow, that felt right. "Hey, Professor Vale!" a boy shouted from the hopscotch line. "We used the equal trade thing you taught us." Altara lifted his hand in a lazy salute, glad to hear it. "Keep your margins fair." The boy blinked, unsure what margins meant, then laughed and ran off. Beside him, Ivy settled down with her sketchbook. "You know," she said, "you could at least pretend you're not proud." "I'm not pretending," he said, smiling. "It's nice to be obsolete. Most people don't say that. Most people never learn how to stop being needed." She looked at him sideways, curiosity flickering behind her eyes, a mix of admiration and worry. "You talk like you're going somewhere." Altara glanced at the sky. "Maybe I am." The days passed. The candy class became a school tradition. Even the teachers noticed. One of them, Mrs. Rayner, a kind-eyed woman who taught social studies, began attending the sessions herself, curious about the strange little system the students had invented. "You're the one behind this, aren't you?" she said one afternoon, kneeling beside Altara as he helped two second graders draw up a trade contract on notebook paper. He looked up. "I might be nudged them." Mrs. Rayner smiled. "You have an old soul." "Altara," he chuckled softly. "That's what people keep saying. You ever think about what you'll be when you grow up?" He paused. The question hit differently than she intended, all the time. Well, she said, if teaching's not on your list, it should be. Altara smiled faintly. Maybe it already was. She nodded, not fully understanding, and walked away. That evening, Altara stayed late after class. The halls were empty, the fluorescent lights humming softly above him. He wandered past the trophy case, his reflection sliding across the glass, a 9-year-old boy with the weary eyes of an old man. He stopped before a shelf of old science fair projects. One plaque caught his eye, Innovation Award, Derek Mason, 3rd grade. He smiled. Derek had changed too. No longer the bully, no longer angry, just another kid learning to navigate fairness. In candy class, Derek had even helped others negotiate. Ivy had joked he'd make a good lawyer someday, Altara hoped. That was true. He ran his finger along the edge of the plaque, then turned and looked down the empty hallway rows of lockers. The smell of dust and childhood. It all felt so fleeting, like a world half-lit by memory. Sometimes he wondered if he'd been here before. Not just in this school, but in every metaphor of his life climbing. Ruling, falling, learning. Maybe that was what growing up really meant, learning. The same lessons until they finally stayed. The next day, the principal made an announcement. Students, next Friday, we'll be holding our first ever fair trade fair, organized by our very own Altara Vale and friends. The announcement echoed through the hallways, followed by a cheer. Ivy shot him a grin. You did it again. This time, it's not mine, he said. It's theirs, still. He couldn't help but feel something deep stir. Inside the same thrill of creation he'd always chased. Now tempered by something gentler. The week leading up to the event felt like building a small civilization all over again, but different. No power, no hierarchy. Just collaboration. Each class designed its own booth, one for candy trades, one for hand-drawn crafts, one for story swapping. There were posters, jingles, and even a currency exchange run by Derek and his new team. Fair, transparent, and democratic. Ivy oversaw the planning. Altara watched quietly, stepping in only when needed. He found joy in helping others solve problems. Instead of solving them himself, it was chaos, loud, bright and imperfect, but it was alive, and this time, he didn't want to control it. He wanted to remember it. By the time the fair arrived, the whole school buzzed with excitement. Banners hung from classroom windows. The air smelled of popcorn and sugar, and the blacktop shimmered under the late autumn sun. Altara stood near the center, clipboard in hand, watching his new world unfold. Kids laughed, traded, bartered, learned. Even teachers joined in. Mrs. Rayner swapped her pen for a candy bracelet. Derek managed the crowd with surprising diplomacy. Ivy drew a mural on the wall, a giant map of the schoolyard filled with symbols of fairness and friendship. At the bottom corner, she added a quote in chalk: "A fair trade is one where both sides walk away smiling." Altara read it and smiled himself. "You stole my line," Ivy grinned. "You needed better handwriting." As the sun began to set, he stood at the edge of the playground, just as he had on that first strange morning months ago. Back then, he'd been a lost man in a child's body, building an empire out of fear and habit. Now he was simply a boy, older in spirit, lighter in soul, standing among the echoes of something finally right. And yet he felt something shift. The air shimmered. The laughter seemed distant, muffled. For a moment, he thought he saw the playground dissolve into mist, replaced by a skyline. Tall and cold, glittering with the lights of his old life. He blinked. The world steadied again. "Altara?" Ivy's voice pulled him back. "You okay?" He nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just thinking." That night, he couldn't sleep. Every sound felt stretched. Unreal, the hum of the house, the creak of floorboards, his mother humming softly downstairs. He rose from bed and stood by the window, watching the moonlight spill over the empty street. It hit him then, the sense that his time here was ending. This world had taught him what he needed to learn. It wasn't punishment or illusion, it was mercy. He closed his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered to whom? He didn't know. And in the quiet of that moment, something inside him, the restless, hungry part that always wanted more, finally stilled. Chapter 6. The Departure. The silence came first, not the soft silence between the songs of crickets or the hum of distant cars, but something deeper. A silence that felt alive, resonant, fast enough to hold entire lifetimes within its stillness. Altara. Veil floated through it like a thought unspoken. He wasn't asleep yet, the world had dissolved. The school, his room. Even his body fading into weightless abstraction. Light and shadow swirled together in currents, like two tides merging after a long war. He could still feel the echo of heartbeat and breath, but they belonged to no flesh he could name. He looked down and there were no hands. No feet, only a faint shimmer of golden threads, as if his essence was being rewritten in strokes of light. Then from somewhere beyond the quiet came a voice, soft, clear and impossibly familiar. "Altar Veil," it said, "are you ready?" He turned toward the sound and saw a corridor, endless and luminous, lined with doors, thousands of them, stretching into infinity. Some were old, wooden and cracked, others sleek and shining like mirrors. Behind each doctor pulsed faint light, scenes from lives once lived, choices made, moments that could have been. He took a step forward, and the floor rippled like liquid glass. When he glanced down, his reflection shifted. One moment a boy, the next an old man. Then something in between. He felt no fear. Only a woman waited at the first door. She was neither young nor old, her presence soft as dawn light. Her eyes carried the same warmth as his mother's, the same understanding as Ivy's, the same quiet amusement as life itself. "Who are you?" he asked. "Who do you need me to be?" she replied, smiling. "I don't know," he said truthfully. "I'm not sure who I am anymore." "Then you're almost ready." She said. She let him past the first door. Inside he saw his old boardroom, cold, gleaming, filled with the hum of ambition. He saw his younger self, gray suit, silver tie, eyes hard as marble, shaking hands, smiling that calculated smile. "Do you regret him?" she asked. Altara hesitated sometimes. "But I understand him now. He wanted to be respected, to matter." And did he? He looked closer. In that frozen reflection, saw the truth, the empty eyes behind the victories, the loneliness behind every deal signed. "No," he whispered. He just forgot what mattered. The light behind that door dimmed and vanished. They moved on. The next door showed his classroom. The kids laughing, trading candies, running under the sun. There he was again, small, smiling, alive, teaching Derek how to negotiate fairly. Laughing with Ivy, he reached toward the image, and his hand passed through the light like mist. That world felt real. It was real, she said. Every world where a lesson is learned is real. Altara smiled faintly. Then maybe that's where I should have stayed. Maybe you never left, she said. Maybe that world was the part of you that still believes people can change. They reached the final door, a vast one carved from light itself. No reflection, no shadow. Beyond this, she said, there are no names, no walls, no time. Only the essence you've made. Altara looked at her at this calm, infinite presence and asked quietly, is this death? She tilted her head. Does it feel like an ending? He thought for a long while, then shook his head. No, it feels like release. She smiled, radiant and sad, then call it what you wish. He stood before the door. It pulsed faintly as if breathing. Inside, he could almost hear echoes, laughter, footsteps. Voices calling his name. Ivy's laugh, his mother's hum. The sound of children playing on the blacktop. 1,000 lives in a single heartbeat. He hesitated. If I go, what happens to them? They go on, she said. That's what life does, and me. You become what you've built, not the empire, not the wealth. But the meaning? He took a breath, not with lungs, but with whatever spark still lived inside him. And for a brief moment, he saw them all, the boardroom and the playground, merging into one golden plain, skyscrapers dissolving into chalk drawings, coins turning to candy, deals turning to laughter. It was all one story, one long negotiation between who he was and who he wished to be. He smiled. Then softly he said, I think I understand the deal now. The woman nodded. Then go. He stepped through the door. There was no fall, no rush, only expansion. The light unfolded like a tide, washing away shape and memory, leaving only essence, and in that boundless brightness, a voice his own. Yet not whispered. Redemption is not about what you gain, but about what you finally stop trying to own. The words rippled outward, dissolving into infinity. A playground stood bathed in morning light. Children laughed. A notebook sat forgotten on a bench, pages fluttering in the breeze. Ivy passed by, now a little older, carrying her backpack. She paused when she saw the notebook, the same one Altara used to carry. She smiled softly, fingers brushing the worn cover. When she opened it, there were no words, only a faint imprint of handwriting burned into the first page. Teach, don't rule. She closed it gently, the corners of her eyes shimmering in the sunlight. Somewhere far beyond her hearing, in that quiet, eternal expanse where memory and meaning meet, a warm, amused voice echoed. Light as wind through leaves. Good deal, kid.